Welcome to Pink Kink,
where we talk about the pretty, twisted side of kink.
I'm Princess Rara.
And I'm Dara, the Electro Khaleesi.
Whether you are a new kinkster or have years of experience, Pink Kink will help you level up your kink knowledge.
Join us on this journey as we talk about our personal experiences and use the knowledge we've gained over 28 years of being involved in both private and professional aspects of this lifestyle to help you explore every facet of kink.
Get set for an adventure. Not only will you learn and grow, but we promise loads of laughter, turning each episode into a fun party. So fasten your seatbelt and let's get this show started. Pink Kink runs off the generosity of our devoted patrons.
As a patron, you will become a member of our special Discord server, receive some adorable Pink Kink stickers, as well as have access to a monthly behind-the-scenes podcast. Patrons also get discounts at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique, and our online classes at Pink Kink Institute.
In addition, our impactful and electrifying Pink Kinksters get special audio and video episodes. And finally, patrons at our highest tier will be recognized as producers, both here on the podcast and on our website.
If you would like to become a patron, you can visit us at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast or click the link at pinkkinkpodcast.com.
Today's episode is produced by our electrifying Pink Kinksters. Thank you, Jay, Witcherman, Brianna Lynn, Daddy J, Fabe, Embers, Blossom, William P., Claire, Lady Blooding, Naughty and Nice, Butte Pain, Manda Panda, Cat, Shadow Phoenix, Brian, May Cry Devil, Ruby Riot, Mistress Velma, Enchanted Sparrow, The Wombat, Impact Hazard, Twitch, The Midnight Girl, Sinful, J21, Daisy If You Do, AK Harley Chick, Violet Rain, Serenity, Belle, Eric, Lady Affliction, Dr. Dave,
Pumpkin Pie, Ms. Tourmaline, S'more, Hacksaw, Wee Mad Beastie, To Be Better For Me, 3 a.m. Thoughts, Forest, Crash Override, Iro, Kinky Bear, Sviper No Sviping, Barbie, Navigator Bard, Frost, Sinful and Naughty, Coffee and Chaos, Noir, Mr. Pillsbury, Stitch, Peaches, Mighty Owl, Princess Sassy Pants, Lady and Lex, Chaos Monster, Hazel Page, Jessa Lady, DJ Harlow, Ophelia, Drew, Sexy Sunrise, Daddy's Pumpkin, and Birchbeard. Hey Kinksters, Dara here. I've got some exciting news for you. September is a big month for us because both Rara and I are celebrating our birthdays. To make this month even more special, we're kicking off our annual Patreon drive, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. Becoming a patron this month is like giving us the best birthday present ever. Plus, you get some amazing perks. Think behind-the-scenes content, our exclusive Discord server, and more. So, if you enjoy what we do here at Pink Kink Podcast and you want to keep the kinky content coming, now's the perfect time to join our Patreon family. Just head over to patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast. Pick a tier that suits you and help us make this birthday month unforgettable. Thanks for celebrating with us. And as always, stay kinky.
So Dara.
Yes, Rara.
This episode is a little different because this one landed in my lap.
Don't you love when shit lands in your lap?
I didn't have to work very hard at this.
That's so great.
And this just, I did what I do. I perused social media and I had a message on, I'm sorry, I'm still going to call it Twitter. Is that okay? I can't call it X.
Well, you acknowledge the fact that it has X, but yes, Twitter. X, formerly known as Twitter.
Right. And I had a message from somebody saying, hi. So I am a director with a brand new documentary about kink. Would you be interested in seeing it, in interviewing me, blah, blah, blah. And I looked it over and I thought, all right, let's take a risk here. Sure, I'll even schedule the interview before I've even seen the documentary to know whether or not we should do this.
That was risky.
Hey, I'm, sometimes you just have to take a risk. And I'm so glad that we did because this documentary was amazing.
It was really fascinating. I just love and I'm so impressed by how real and authentic it was and how not stereotypical it was as well. I appreciated that.
Yeah. It is, first of all, the name of it's called tOuch document. It's actually called tOuch Kink.
Yes.
But what's interesting is in the word touch, the T is lowercase and the O is uppercase. So it looks like it's ouch, which I can't wait to ask the director how he came up with that name, because it's I love it.
It's really good. I appreciate wordplay.
Yeah.
So that was clever.
And this is just, it's so authentic, this documentary. It is, I mean, we've seen a couple things, some of it not even pretending to be, nonfiction, but some stuff that is supposed to be nonfiction, when we did like that Kink.com documentary.
Right.
And, you run the risk of somebody putting out information about kink and the information sucks. And the information did not suck.
No, it was good.
In fact, I think there was only 2 things in the entire documentary that I kind of went, wait a minute, that's not quite right.
And it wasn't exactly that we disagreed with it per se, or that it was incorrect.
It was incomplete.
Yes. And it was that kink has evolved. So,
which they do talk about in the documentary. Yes. I mean, we watched it and Dara and I were both like, this is good.
Mm-hmm. No, it really is. And, we give our opinions freely.
And I know that sounds bad. Maybe like, oh, were you expecting it to be bad? It wasn't that I was expecting it to be good or bad. I just appreciate the fact that it was good.
Yes.
So I think we really got lucky with that. And I'm super excited we have the director on so that we can ask him questions about the name and understanding the name and what made him decide to do this, and then the whole process of putting this together. So let me read you his bio so we know exactly who it is we were talking to. His name is Todd Max Carey, but he goes by Max. So Max is a first-time director, actually based in Montreal. And throughout his life, he's had the privilege of wandering, working, and living in 137 countries over 30 years. And during that time, he's collected experiences throughout his journeys. His personality is bold and unapologetic, and he views life as a masterpiece that draws inspiration from all of these diverse cultures. He's happiest when questioning and challenging the status quo, as he believes that growth and progress stem from pushing boundaries. As Socrates once famously said, I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing. And I'm not even sure I know that. But I'm always eager to learn and expand my horizons, both personally and professionally. And the documentary is described as a film journey into the secret worlds of pleasure, pain, and power. And it's told through interweaving of 4 main stories. There's Grace, who's an all-American soccer mom, who learns to awaken the goddess inside her as she makes her nervous first foray into the realm of being a dominatrix. And that storyline alone would have been enough for an entire documentary, because it was amazing and fascinating, but we got more. We also have Mistress Evelyn, or Eveline, I think it's Eveline, a British dominatrix on a cultural mission who is unfortunately outed to the tabloid press and harassed by British establishment. And that's really sad. We have Robin, who's a good old boy from Texas. He's also a fearless kinkster, slave, and property of a dominatrix. And his story, as he explains, his evolution from somebody who was like on the outside looking in and wanting to be a part of it, and then finally getting to be a part of it. I love it. And then finally, there's January Seraph. Is that how you say it?
Seraph?
Seraph, probably Seraph. The mercurial muse, guide, and inspiration behind understanding the secret power that all possess, but few truly realize. And all of these people were kind enough to be interviewed. There's some other people that they interviewed who are able to really talk about kink, and they're all actual kinksters embedded into the kink world. And in this documentary, you were going to see some amazing scenes that even made me go, whoa.
Yes.
let alone poor Dara, who I had to pick up off the floor. But you'll get to see the human side of the connection and what it means to be owned and what it means to play edge play because you know each other so well. You recognize body language in distressful situations and how far you can and cannot go. It's just, I highly recommend seeing it if you can. There's a link in the show notes where you can go and find out about how you can see the movie. It'll be shown in certain theaters, but there's also going to be a way to watch it on demand. And I'm going to just repeat myself because I think it bears repeating. We recommend it. We
Very
recommend
much.
you see this.
Very much. It was good.
All right. So now that you know all about it, let's talk to Max and find out more about tOuch Kink. So welcome, Max. We are super excited to see you. We just watched the documentary Thursday night, and we were both so impressed. So I'm really excited to have you here to talk about this with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to get a chance to chat with fellow Kinksters.
I mean, I love the name alone, tOuch, but with the O capitalized, so it's ouch. How'd you come up with that name?
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons for it, actually. It was playing with the idea of comfort, of touch, and discomfort with ouch, in the sense that we often, to learn new things in life, have to challenge things that may be a little uncomfortable. But if we do, we get better connection. And the O also, for me, obviously there's orgasmic O, like, whoa, oh, in the story of but for me, it was actually about the difference between what kinky people do and what non-kinky people do isn't really what they do, it's how they do it. And in our world, there's the negotiation, consent, play, but then there's the aftercare, which finishes the circle. Which for me, that's the difference between what we do and abuse. If you do exactly the same thing can be abuse as kink play. The only difference is how it's done. If the circle is finished and you're really cared about this person, checked in with this person, and everything was negotiated, it's great. If it same activity without all that, without the circle, is abuse. So for me, it was just an important point.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
What was the inspiration behind putting together this documentary? Especially, Sue, I was reading in your bio that you're a first-time documentarian, right? This is your first one?
That's right. Yeah. I had met a dominatrix, and, I'd been interested in the kink scene from more of a, male dominant point of view. And, I always considered myself a man of the world, traveled the world. And I was just so surprised how many misunderstandings I had about what it was to be a dominatrix. And right off the bat, this person was kind and patient and explained everything to me that I had always been curious about. And it just made me more and more curious about, if I didn't know that these people were like this, how could anyone else know? And the same person, offered to make the connections, which of course in this community is all about trust and connection. So just kind of happened organically like that.
Oh, that's really sweet. So did you learn new things?
Did I learn? I learned lots. I learned a fuckload of new things. I love it. I love this is a swearing encouraged kind of podcast. It certainly frees the. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned is that even though all the communities may look different, they may seem and even describe themselves differently. It really is about connection and about a process and about being authentic, and that there's actually surprisingly more commonalities between everyone than I had originally thought.
Very cool.
Did you go into it with a plan of, what aspects of the lifestyle you were going to cover, or was it more organic?
It was definitely organic. I've done, many screenings at film festivals now, and occasionally I get I don't feel represented. And I'm like, well, give me $100 million because the community is so vast. There's 1,000 aspects. I would love to do a 100-part series exploring every corner of the kink community. But
wow,
these were the people I met. That led organically to more people. That led organically to more people. So because it started with a female dominatrix, it became a bit heavy that way. But I imagine if she was into shibari, it would have been more about shibari. So organic, I think, is the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I like that.
I always think that films are like are trips to a country. You know, you go to the country, okay, maybe you arrive in Paris and that was your plan, but then you find this cool food and end up in interesting cities and just kind of go with the flow as opposed to, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. You know, sometimes you miss out on too much if you don't go with the flow. So I'm a big fan of that. Although
So
I probably should
you
have a
don't
bit more
know
structure.
Rara, but
Rah rah.
My flow is planned.
she has them like time stamped and coordinated. And if you deviate from the plan, well, that is also part of the plan.
Well, because I have all my plans have sub plans, so
Yeah.
I'm prepared.
Just in case this plan goes awry, she has plan B, C, D, X, Q.
A
used
little
to
anal
do
about that shit. It's
I-
okay.
I get
It
it.
actually
Yeah,
is what makes me
yeah.
a good dominatrix because
There you go.
it's all planned.
She has
I can see the
contingencies.
Venn diagram now. It's like, you know, it takes up a whole wall. You know, in case of A, we go to C. In case of C, we go to F. Okay, I get
It's
it.
more like a
Uh-huh.
flow chart, I think.
Oh, it is because it's like, okay, so are you here? Yes.
Yeah.
Go this way. No. Go that way. Yep.
And sometimes this one goes right back up this way.
Yeah. It's like, go back. You fucked up. There you go.
Yeah, imagine my life dealing with that.
Hey.
So,
But
I-
at least she does the editing.
No,
Nope. She does the
I thought-
editing. I do everything
okay. I
else.
misunderstood. I misunderstood. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why the royal we, because she does the editing.
I do all the
Now I get
audio
it. Okay.
behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
I get it
So
now. Okay.
how
fair
did
enough.
you mentioned trust. How did you gain the trust of your subjects in order for them to talk so openly? I mean, especially the woman who took the class
Mhm.
and seemed like she was coming from a vanilla standpoint and took this class and is
Yeah.
now no longer vanilla.
Yeah, definitely not.
Good class.
But yeah, it was a good class. Well, I had met her years earlier in India, and found her an interesting person. So had dinner with her or whatever, and quickly realized that she was a lovely person, but way kind of too dominant, kind of a woman for me to be interested in anything other than just a friend. Which fine, that's how it broke out. And then years later, I was just trying to think of, so who do I know that would be kind of a traveler's mindset, that would be interested in exploring this, who probably will be more into this than they realize. And her name just popped up and contacted her on Facebook. And, she said, yeah, I'm always up for a new experience. And she said, I don't know that I can guarantee I'm going to like any of this. I said, I don't need you to lie. I want you to tell me, what you feel about this and what your thoughts are. And I think that was some of the more poignant stuff, because she really did think kinky people were nuts and that they were damaged and all the cliches that your average American thinks. She really had that. But she's enough of a traveler to sort of give it a fair shake. And there was times where she felt like she had to leave and it wasn't really for her, but, she stuck through it, and through that discomfort found new connection.
I really, really love that term, traveler.
Mm-hmm.
We use explore a lot. Like we're exploring a new kink. I wonder how many kinksters who like to explore new things are like into travel and new foods and new experiences. I feel like that'd be kind of interesting.
Certainly as someone who has the curiosity and desire to travel, I think that bodes well for your curiosity to explore new things, So
Yeah.
it would make sense if you're the kind of person like, I'm perfectly happy living in, this tiny little town in this tiny little place and with my friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. I often sort of wish I wasn't so interested in seeing everything. I know people are very happy with their beliefs and their world, and I'm not going to be someone to shake that up if they're happy in it. But yeah, it takes a certain kind of person to really kind of like leave for another country and explore,
Yeah. It's almost like that's what it feels like. I think that's actually a really cool way to put it.
Another point sort of related to travel and related to the notion of finding new knowledge or to finding some sort of new information we can put into our life is people will say, oh, people in the kink, there's so much trauma, there's so many problems, everybody's doing this. But first of all, everyone has some sort of problems or traumas in their life, and usually that's when you're psychologically most open to change. You're psychologically ready, you prepare. Like if everything's fine, why do you want to change anything? Whereas if something's gone wrong or you've had some problem, lost a job, who knows what, you're kind of open to new things, to new adventures, which is why it may seem like everyone in the kink community has been through some stuff. But part of that is A, that's everyone goes through stuff, and B, that is typically when you find new stuff, is when you've gone through some sort of problem and your mind is a little bit more open for solutions.
Yeah, that works.
Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned that you had some of your own misconceptions when it came to this. Can you talk about what those misconceptions were that you had before starting and how your perspective has changed now that you've made this?
Yeah, I think pretty much a lot of the ones that the general community has, that like, okay, dominatrixes are maybe shagging their clients. I thought that was sort of a dirty little secret, but the truth, not that it actually would matter, but, a lot of people think that, where I found that that's actually kind of the opposite. In fact, it doesn't really make sense, actually, because most of the guys that are going to see a dominatrix want her to be a goddess and sort of somewhat unattainable, and this authority figure is the last thing in the world they would want is to actually, I mean, they may desire it, but the last thing they would expect, and it would spoil it, would be some sort of shagging, So that surprised me. I mean, I just thought there was going to be more of that, and there's less. I think the younger generation, there might be a bit more of that because they grew up on kink.com or whatever. But so that surprised me. The openness of people, the general level of intelligence. I find that if you go to a kink convention, you're apt to see, on average, better educated people than you would at many other conventions. Statistically speaking, you're twice as likely, if you're a professional, you're twice as likely to be kinky if you're not a professional. So the education ties into it more than I would have realized.
Never thought about that.
The sheer diversity of it is fascinating. I did end up traveling in other worlds that I didn't film, and maybe I'll make a documentary with that material, but how all the worlds seem so different. But I have this theory I call rugby now to sort of understand everybody's kink, and I try and apply it to things that seem like kinks are completely unrelated, but it sort of works. So that it's actually pretty much, it's just human interest,
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, kink is a very broad and diverse lifestyle. It's one of the things that we love about it. How did you ensure that your documentary really represented that diversity?
I couldn't. I mean, I as I said earlier in our conversation, I went where we went, and I talked to who we talked to. I wasn't trying to follow some sort of checklist. There is a certain amount of diversity in the character. In fact, it's funny, there's a number of transgender people, but I'm not going to make it about that. I'm not going to like label someone and say, oh, this person is 25% this and this person's that. Like, to me, that wasn't interesting. So it was never really a priority to intentionally try and check some diversity checkboxes. But I do think that there was a certain amount more diversity than people realize. But again, I'm not going to label people, other than the roles they've told me. They ask them, what's your name and how do you identify? And that's what I put down.
Were there any ethical dilemmas while you were filming? And how did that, like when it came to portraying consent and safety and everything?
For me, the biggest sort of ethical or dilemma was that January, the person that had initiated the documentary, sadly took her own life. And even though I had, the model releases and stuff, and I just didn't feel right in using that material. And it took me almost 2 years, actually, before I sort of woke up one morning and say, you know what, I'm just going to reach out to her family and show them what I have and let them decide, even though it was like I could use it, but it felt icky to use it use it without having sort of an extra check. So I managed to get a hold of her parents and her sister and her father, and they said, as long as you don't make it about her suicide, which I didn't.
Right.
They thought it was good, and we should be very happy that it was made. So
they were aware of the lifestyle and everything, so that was okay.
Yeah. Her, cool. I don't know if it was in it, but her mother, well, so it was certainly in it and open about it too, was also sort of into the nudist lifestyle and sort of kind of on the edge of, what was normal in her time too.
So the film had stories from different countries. Did you find, what was the difference as far as, let's say, how America handles kink versus some other countries? Are we more accepting? Are we more prudish?
Yeah, well, the funny thing about America, I always say to people is, which America? I mean, are we talking about Seattle or are we talking about Alabama?
Huge difference there.
It's like people, I always try to make this point to my European friends. Think of America like the European Union. What goes in, Sweden may not go in Italy, or even South Italy something might not be cool that's cool in North Italy. I mean, it's a big country, and each state really does have very different politics. So there's just different styles, different styles and different kinks. Like the UK still has a lot of the corporal stuff, and I think that's because a lot of them really did get punished as school kids. And I think, from what I understand, that's disappearing now among the generation that never got the cane.
Well, I mean, we're in Virginia, and the difference between Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia is incredible. And a lot of Europeans don't seem to understand how fucking big this country really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing.
Even the states, like they don't, there's no concept of just how humongous Texas is. I think Texas is 10-hour drive straight across?
Yeah, pretty
Something
much.
like that. Just one state.
And you look at Texas as a great example, because you think like what's cool in Austin and what's cool in Houston. Austin's a pretty chill place and pretty artistic, and I think pretty open minded. Other places a little
The
more
Seattle of the South.
Yeah, it's actually, I had dated a pro dom for a while who was from Austin originally. And in fact, it's really funny because when the film was covering DomCon, I paused and looked at the group picture, to see if she was in there, because I know she was a regular at that event, and see who I recognized from in there. Unfortunately, I think I might have recognized a couple just from, I know of them. I've never met them, but I'm well aware of them. But it was so funny. We were watching it together, and as soon as it came up, I went, I know that. That's DomCon. And then the film mentioned, I went, I was right. It's DomCon. I know.
I really, really want to go to DomCon. That's definitely on my bucket list.
It's a great event. I mean, that was the thing January sort of introduced me to. First off was DomCon, and of course, vouching for me and talking to people there, getting to know me. Was the place where suddenly my one contact turned into 2, turned into 4, turned into 8.
You should come to DomCon New Orleans. DomCon Nolan,
I love that.
Call it.
Yeah, I've been to it once or twice. It's actually, I love it. I love,
That's. I think that's the plan more than the one in Los Angeles.
That's more feasible for us.
It's a lot smaller from what I understand, but it's but then of course you're in the center of things in New Orleans, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
The LA one is literally at the airport. No one really ever leaves the hotel, so it's it's all in the hotel, but it's much bigger. And the NOLA one is like, let's head down into the party area.
Sounds good.
So, do you have a particular memorable moment or conversation from the documentary that's really had a significant impact on you, or the direction of tOuch, or maybe an inspiration for another documentary?
Yeah, well, my plan now is and I'm working on a 10-part series that's going to explore, officially it's about sex and technology, how technology drives sex and sex drives technology, but a lot of it will be with regard to kink. I personally believe that maybe kink doesn't even exist. It's just humans. We have interests. If we want to label it, okay, fine, call it a kink. But every human being is fascinated by something. They may be quote unquote kinky and not know it. They think whatever. I mean, it's the old classic of guys used to always say, "Oh, you like boobs, you like butts, or whatever." Well, those are both fetishes, but somehow that no one thinks of it as that. Well, it is. It's a fetish. I mean, it's no more or less strange than being into feet or something, but obviously people think feet is weird and boobs and butts are fine. So, I'd like to move into doing a 10-part series about sex and technology and how humans, our fascination for things, to me, that is what makes us human. And kinky people become very fascinated with. I mean, I tend to think that music composers were probably fetishist inventors. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci was actually arrested for crimes against nature at one point, but he had had the Medici family back him up, and that was luckily he was saved. But some of the greatest minds in the world were kinky as heck by most standards.
Well, Da Vinci was gay, so that could have also been
That would have been the crimes
that would
against
have been the
nature.
crime.
I
That's so
suspect
funny.
that he was probably, I don't really believe that well, maybe. I don't think there's that many people 100% anything. So he was probably on the spectrum somewhere. But who knows?
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But crimes against he could have also been like what if he was also a sadomasochist? Dude, if I had a time machine, instantaneously I'd go back to Da Vinci, like 100%.
And go, what are you thinking, huh?
Be like, yo, what's going on? How you doing all this stuff, loon?
I love that you're going to do it on sex and technology. We're actually going to record an episode very soon about how technology plays a part in modern day kink.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one has always driven the other. Whether we realize our need to connect is a human thing, and that drives technology. Our need to do things a certain way. It's all about some passionate need to do something. Cars. Everybody loves their cars. I mean, there's a huge fetish when you think about all these people that buy these expensive, fancy cars. I'm a guy without the car gene, but I'm always amazed how much guys talk about cars. And I mean, it's like they're in love with these things. I mean, but no one thinks of it that way. And obviously, the designers of these cars are probably, car design fetishists. Certainly shoe design people are.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's like the amount of people who will claim up and down and back and forth that they're vanilla, but then they actually do like a little spanking in their sex, or maybe
A little joking.
or even just a little dominance in the fact that one person is very obviously in charge and directing everything. So
That's just religion.
Yeah.
maybe your religion. I told you, my religion says the man must satisfy the woman. So I'm going to stick to mine. Thank you very much.
Wow. What religion's that?
Judaism.
Oh, that's good. Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a
It
law,
actually
a
says that in the
religious law.
Torah?
Yeah, that says the man
Wow.
must, the woman's pleasure must happen.
And now I understand why now
We're smart people. What can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if,
No wonder, I hear it's a really hard club to get in, As a Christian, you just have to say, hey, I'm a Christian, you're that. But, you guys make it much more tough. Now I understand why everybody wants in. Everybody wants in that club.
See, there you go. There's a for your next documentary about religions and sex and how that all works out. Because I bet that'd be fascinating.
actually, yeah, I'd watch
Well,
the
there is a
shit out of
history
that.
pre-Judeo-Christian. Non-monogamy was the course of the day. Bisexuality for the most part was the course of the day. I mean, Roman soldiers really loved each other. Alexander the Great is, famously, loved his soldiers. I mean, how else can you go out and conquest with a bunch of manly men for 8 years and never come back? You really love your men. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but these things, it's just how you grow up with a society. I think my generation grew up, pick your side of the line. The generation that's growing up now, I think, is having it better, where they're like, oh, I'm poly, haven't decided, haven't really figured out anything, which is true. When you're young, you haven't. Why should we be forcing you to pick a side so early? It's better to acknowledge the truth that, hey, I'm interested in dating a few people. I'm interested in sort of figuring out what I like, and that's more honest than I'm straight and that's my girlfriend. Yeah. I'm straight.
Yeah.
That's my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I cheat on her. She doesn't know. I could have just said, I don't think we had the word polyamorous actually when I was a kid. I'm that old. It probably existed, but I certainly wasn't in common usage.
Okay, I'm assuming you are Gen X.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go Gen X.
Yeah.
Go Gen
Did that word exist back in the day?
No, it did not. That would have been cheating.
Yeah, that's what we called it. Yeah, like I would have totally been the first to use that word back then. I would tell you, and I think it was a good. It's labels are useful to help us get into the general area to have a conversation. But once we get into that general area conversation, including kink, I think we should almost throw them away, because as I understand the definition of the word kink, is a minority interest. Well, everybody at this point has done fuzzy handcuffs, so bondage is no longer kinky. Hate to break it to you. Everybody's been doing dominance to each other pretty much since the beginning of time. So I hate to break it to you, that's not kinky. If you really do it as minority interest, there's really not that much left.
Well, cool. So what were some of the creative or technical challenges that you faced when capturing the scenes and the dynamics on film?
Just the time it takes and the money it takes. It's just an incredibly expensive, time-consuming process if you don't want to fake it. I mean, a lot of reality TV, they'll say, okay, now I'm going to have you guys, okay, so what's going to happen in this scene is she's going to spill this cup of coffee, and then you're going to yell and scream at her, and at the end, you're going to say, I'm never talking to you again. And okay, that's your story points. Now let's film it. What they actually do, as long as it hits those story points, they don't care, but they can do it a lot more efficiently. Whereas if you're literally just filming everything, hoping for something to happen, it certainly takes a lot longer, and it's just a little bit of a logistic nightmare. So I'm not sure I would be naive enough to try that again.
Well,
I
we
shot,
did notice
100 days, 600 hours.
Yeah. We did notice in the film that there was a scene where they were filming a BDSM scene with two girls being the bottoms, and I heard somebody say "fogasm."
Oh, yeah. That's funny. Well, that was one of the first people I was able to talk to was someone who was comfortable being on camera. He films fetish films, and we were actually just filming him filming a fetish film, and he was sort of an introductory to it because he was one of the first people that was willing to sort of let us film and see it. At that point, we weren't sure how much play we were going to get. You know, how many people were going to. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it; it's another thing to actually show your play. So. Yeah, that particular scene was everybody there was part of a team creating a video.
Yeah. So, did you collaborate with BDSM educators during the production, before the production? I mean, what was the process that you went through to put this all together?
I'm with there's an old broadcaster again showing my age, Larry King, who famously liked to just ask a lot of questions. And just, because he found that if you prepared too much, the questions wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be real. It'd be asking things that nobody cared about. So, my preparation was just talking to the 600 people that I talked to and interviewing them and finding it out and figuring out as I go along. And when they would bring up a point, I would write it down and, ask the next people. So it was just the process of interviewing 600 hours of material, but I think I interviewed 250 people. So just those 250 hours of interview, that was my research. And they were from all walks of life, educators, stoms, subs.
Yeah. I mean, I really, I like looking at my notes, and there were definitely some things that I'm like, I loved this. I loved that. I loved that the showcasing of what the myths were versus the reality. I loved the process of discussing how BDSM has changed over the years from originally being in the DSM to how it's more accepted now.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one person was talking about how it used to be like mentor mentee, and that was it.
Oh,
and now
that's my favorite line. I actually wrote that down. Mentoring has been replaced with chit chat on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was like going, yes, that is so true.
Because I've been in for 20 years. I definitely got mentored twice. Basically in the beginning parts when you're just doing your basic stuff. And then when I started specializing in electro, I had a totally different mentor for a very specific kink. So I missed the whole internet chit chat thing, which has only been since COVID-ish?
No, it started beforehand because that's how I got on.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So 10-ish years?
10-ish years.
God, it's been that long? Holy shit.
I think it's even longer than that. I think it's the dawn of the internet. People were on boards chit-chatting about this stuff. I think, I wanted to put that in because I think anybody can get a basic understanding. For me, this was always a 101. Just understand the basics of what you need to do and encourage people. I mean, obviously something like electro would require a huge amount of knowledge and mentorship. Most of these things, if you're specifically into anything, there's a whole other dimension to it, a whole other class you have to get educated on. And you need mentors, or you need to educate yourself to take any of these things farther along. It's more the basic framework that I was trying to get to people. It's like, okay, it's not as people are enjoying this. They like it for different reasons. And as long as you follow this process of this circle, you're good. Now go get more information if you're interested.
Yeah, I will. I will say though, I did catch one thing where one of the people you interviewed, and he was going over the definition of BDSM. He was a little off.
He forgot the middle one. I know.
He forgot that whole domination and submission part of BDSM.
Yeah, he just said the physical stuff, like bondage is rope, and we're like, Well, we also noticed a couple of other things, if we want to get into those right now. Somebody mentioned SSC. And we have noticed as a whole, the community has started to move away from that term. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Wait, when was this documentary made? Really quick.
The filming was in 2017 and 2018.
Okay.
And then it took me a long time to finish the editing. I know moving more towards rack now, as I understand.
Yes.
But
and Robert,
I think is it
prick.
What's prick?
Oh, prick is personal responsibility informed consensual kink.
Right.
I just like to say it. It just cracks me up. So.
Right. Okay.
But even that's now there's another one, a fourth one, the 4 C's, which I don't remember off the top of my head what those are. But the more I'm learning about them, the more I'm enjoying them as well.
Well, consent,
caring, some other things. As I said, I don't. That one I haven't.
Candy.
No. Oh. I haven't. I got that off memorized just quite yet. I've got to do some more research to fully understand it before I feel comfortable teaching about it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's the amazing thing with kink. Is like, here you are. You filmed this in 2017, and we're just 7 years later, and already some things are different. Mm-hmm. We're constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
As a community.
The more we're open about it, the faster that'll happen. People are reaching out. They're having more conversations, and those conversations are leading to fruit. You know, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's part of the whole process, and it's awesome.
Would you ever feel comfortable telling them, "Hey, guess what? That's not a thing anymore"?
Who?
Oh, like if you interview somebody else who's saying we do SSC, would you ever? Like, because I assume filming a documentary, you're there to just observe and film and, do all that, not really get involved. Would you ever actually tell them, hey, guess what? That's not a thing anymore?
Well, I think it still is a thing for some people. But no, I would just say it's interesting how there's so many different ways of looking at it. So you brought up just recently about the 4 C's and prick and rack. And I hadn't heard about rack was coming in. People were talking about rack. But I think it's interesting just to know your history, know where these things come from. Sometimes things come full circle, or why we do things. I mean, I tend to be kind of like a little bit post-gender myself. I think that this whole conversation about what's supposed to be a man, what's supposed to be a woman is silly. I think it would be better just to call it about masculinity and femininity or dominance or whatever. I mean, we all have different ways of divining things, and those conversations, I think, help us all get closer to the truth. So I'd probably say, hey, I hear that's not as popular right now. I was recently on a podcast, and they told me about prick. You want to learn about prick? Sorry, was that inappropriate?
Tell you about my experience with prick? No. Pricks.
So there's a couple of pricks on the show. No, the wrong prick. I'm very confused. I'm very confused.
I did a slip up at work the other day. I was talking about my wrist dislocates, but instead I actually said dicklocates.
Dicklocates.
So your wrist can locate a dick?
Yeah, my wrist locates dicks. So if that were the case, this thing would be popping out like every 2 seconds, and I'd be like, oh, a dick. And this is me yelling that at work.
Yeah.
I am a fucking mess. But it was hysterical because like the person I was talking to had my same sense of humor. So we were rolling, fortunately. It worked out.
I love those little Freudian slips, Or maybe that wasn't Freudian, maybe that was something else. But always fun to get yourself into those sorts of situations.
We do that a lot. on the podcast, we say weird things that we didn't really mean to say. So it's probably where my
It's
head was
also
still
like
at.
people have to know you too. It's like I generally will just to a group of people will say, "Hey guys, how's it going?" Just as a general thing. But maybe that's old fashioned or whatever now. But I've
Well,
found
it's
myself,
very Gen X. We called everybody guys. Didn't matter what
yeah,
your gender
yeah.
was. Everybody was guys.
Hey, as a millennial elder, I still say guys.
Okay. Well, for whatever reason, I seem to be like catching myself doing it in a group of transgender people all the time, and I'm thinking they're somehow thinking I'm calling them out in some way, shape, or form, and I'm totally not. It's just like feels like this giant faux pas because they're thinking I'm not. No. So I've been trying to train myself into saying "Hey, folks," because it's just like I don't want to have anyone even think that I'm trying to, call them out in any way, shape, or form because I'm not. It's just that I'm always catching myself on that one.
I was informed by a non-binary person that calling them dudes is still acceptable because dude, like guys, is gender neutral.
Is
Well,
it?
yeah. Well,
I
think
didn't
about
know
it. We all
that.
grew up like, dude, especially those of us
Seriously.
from the West Coast and, that California girl.
But
Okay.
apparently dude is acceptable. What was the other one? Oh yeah, I mentioned earlier that I just call groups of people goblins and gremlins because it's very gender neutral.
Yeah, but what about the goblins and gremlins? They might feel like they're being, called out
Called
in
out.
some way, shape, or form.
It-
Yeah,
well,
really. I
in
mean, have you?
Rara's
At
case,
least you're not. Say I'm
Pixie.
part Irish, so you can't. Just don't say anything against leprechauns because we know they
Oh,
exist,
well,
and
in
those
that
people
case,
have to be.
banshees and pukas.
There you go. See, be careful. Those
So-
are the people. They're real.
One of the interesting things about BDSM is there's people like me who are out because we can be, and people like Dara who are not because they can't be.
Right.
Have you run into any stigma or judgment because you created this documentary and you're obviously got your name on it and your pictures out there attached to it?
I have, but I think it might be towards anything remotely about sex or anything personal. I'm shocked by how hard it is to promote this movie. Like using Google words, you can't use BDSM, you can't use kink. Being on all but Twitter is really the only thing you can post on and be fairly explicit. Mainstream advertising relies so much on these sort of viral advertising things, and when you're already have two hands behind your back, it's really, really hard to get the word out. So I'm not sure if it's people that really genuinely have an issue with this, or just they can't sell it. They can't figure out how to market things with this subject unless you have someone famous in them. So I feel like, I've had so much interest, but then, when it gets to the final decision as to whether they're going to broadcast it or buy it, it seems like not as many. So far, we've only got Germany, Italy, Israel, and then we're going to be doing video on demand here in America.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's that project. Yeah, people just the subject, but I'm surprised people make judgments based on the fact, I made this documentary. I must be. Well, I am actually kinky, but everyone assumes that I'm a sub, and I have nothing wrong with that because it's most of the men in the documentary are submissives. But those are just the people that I talked to, and again, I wanted to focus more on female dominance for the first one. Anyway,
I got to tell you, we really appreciated that because most media focuses on male dominant, female sub dynamics. So this was really refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was interesting for me anyway, because we both identify as dominant, but we dominate very, very differently.
Very differently.
And I've put it down to femdom versus female dominant. In that femdom is all about female superiority, male inferiority, and I'm just a female who happens to be a dominant. I'm not into a lot of that traditional, superiority, inferiority kind of play. So it was interesting because this to me seemed more like your kind of
the traditional
femdom.
dominatrix femdom. Yeah, because there was a lot of humiliation play in it, and a lot of men are inferior, especially where was that one place that had like the entire house or property?
The other world kingdom in Czech Republic.
Yes.
That was it. Yeah, I was
that's
close. Yeah, that was. I'm like sitting there going,
Dar's like, I need to pack my bags and go on a vacation.
Like, I'm on my way. I'll leave Daddy J at home, but like, let's go. I'm ready. Spend the weekend. I
Well,
want to ride
when
around on a man wearing a saddle. Hell yes.
there you go. There you go. It's funny. The commonality that I saw, between things really helped start. I mean, you understand. You'll have, say, 12 couples getting spanked, and they all look like they're the same, and you could easily, someone who doesn't know could walk into that room and go, "Oh, I guess people like to get spanked," and then leave the room. What they don't understand, and I'm sure you do, is everyone is having a unique experience. You can't, like, if you could hardwire to what's going on in the brain, you'd know it, but it all looks the same, but they're all doing it for different reasons. And in my mind, it boils down to, this kind of like thing is how much of it is something you're fetishizing and how much of it is something that it's a role and how much of it is something that you're just looking for a certain sensation. And that these things can be mixed. So femdom, if it's a fetish, you might want the hardcore. If it's more something you see as a role that you want to interplay as a submissive man, it might be something more as a role and partially as a fetish. And that's why the same thing could actually have different feelings. And you're also trying to get a different feeling out of it. One, you want to feel humiliated. One, you want to feel inspired. One, you want to feel pain. One, you want to feel joy. So it's the same activity, but it depends on how much of what you're seeing is something you're fetishizing, how much of it is your role, your identity at that moment, and how much of it is the sensation you're trying to get in that moment that makes the difference.
Yeah, I my heart broke for the English women who ended up having to move because
that killed me.
Because the neighbors heard.
Yeah,
and it's still it's kind of sad that we're still, even in this modern day and age, that people are not okay with that. Like, the funny thing is we've obviously, almost everybody here has a connection to sex or we wouldn't be here. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe for the few who are like IVF babies.
Well, even then, you have a lot of sex before you go through IVF.
Right?
Trust me.
So we've all got the connection to it, and yet people are still so repressed about it when it's like the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah. No, I agree. I often try and understand why people feel that way. I love to talk to somebody who has opinions opposite to me and just try and listen, ask them questions to try and figure it out. And a lot of the time, those people just comes down to they just don't have the bandwidth to be processing more stuff right now. They're too busy doing their job or taking care of their whatever to deal with the noisy neighbors. If they happen to be young and single, they probably would have introduced themselves to the noisy neighbors. Sometimes it's just time in life. Imagine you had just had two twins or something and you're just trying to get them to sleep. You don't actually care what the noisy neighbors are doing. You just care that they keep waking up your baby.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I tend to think a lot of the time.
For the neighbors' boomers.
Yeah. More or less, but more just sort of wealthy, high professional people that were probably, stressed out from their job and didn't want anyone else to have any fun around them. I don't know.
I know you still haven't rolled this out fully, but you've started doing the press tours and talking to people. What's been the response so far to this?
Really good. I mean, it's there's nothing in between. It's love it or hate it. Most people that are looking for more information about the kink scene, especially more female dominant, seem to like it. People that aren't looking for information about the kink thing thinks it's just another weird and perverted thing about trying to justify a weird lifestyle. Interestingly enough, a lot of male doms seem to be a little bit more like, I don't know. So different people are giving different reactions. The general critics have been good. One of our biggest magazines for documentaries in Canada gave me a good rating, which surprised me because Canada, when it comes to documentaries, is pretty conservative.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a mixed bag for sure. I've done screenings where I can, usually at the beginning of a showing, they'll have me get up on stage and introduce the film. So I introduce the film and I look on the audience. It's like, say there's 300 people there. And if 90% of the audience is women, I know that is going to be, I'm going to get a lot of clapping at the end. If I look out and it's like more men, I know that it's not. And so it seems to be hitting different genders differently.
Do you think that's because it focuses a little bit more in the femdom and the female superiority, and these misogynistic men are having difficulty with it?
I think it's just too weird for them to and I kind of get it because I was sort of male dom myself for the most part, and I didn't really understand what it was to be a dominatrix as much, and I did think that was a bit odd. I didn't think that seemed to be, if I'm honest, like 10, 15 years ago, would have thought that seemed outside of the norm. And here I've been lucky enough to travel to 100 countries and have all sorts of fun. And so if I hold that view, I can kind of get it sometimes. I think women can kind of see both sides of it. For me, I just wanted to talk about dominance and submissions as a sort of a primary notion. And I knew it would be, it's already politically tough enough to talk about kink. If I made it about men spanking women and how they liked it, I might as well just shoot myself in the head right now.
Yeah. Not sure now is the time and place for that angle.
Yeah. No, I think this was a really good angle. In fact, one of the lines that I can't get out of my head, like I was telling you about, was the older woman who said, this is one of the only professions or scenes where the older you are as a woman, the more respect you get, because you just have so much more street cred. And that's one of Rara's life goals.
Yeah.
It's a knowledge too. Yeah. Your life goals to get older.
She I definitely see for me, the one that I keep going over in my head, I think it was January who said this about that dominatrixes deserve to have love too. They deserve to be loved.
Yeah. There was so much in this documentary. It was just like we were sitting there just like mouths agape half the time going, oh, okay.
Well, because a lot of it was so authentic. Like the people who you were interviewed were being themselves and they were talking about their real experiences. So it wasn't, it was taking the stereotypes and just throwing them away and saying, this is what's real. I mean, even the traditional male dominant, the one who had made the quote about the mentor. I mean, I loved him and what he was saying because his experience is more what our experience is actually being embedded in the lifestyle versus what people think kink is.
Okay, so the one thing that scared the shit out of me was the pool scene where the guy was in the straitjacket and the hood. And they're like, yeah, it's edge play. I'm like, dude, that's
edge play in capital letters.
That is edge play. Like, mother of...
The two of us were going, okay, his arms are tied. So what's this? How does he safe word? He can't speak. He doesn't have his hands to make any safe word signals. How does he do this?
And then he said he wiggles. I'm like, dude, if I were underwater like that, I'd be wiggling a lot.
Yeah, it was definitely edge play, and I think they talk about it how the only reason they could do that is they've been playing together for so long. It's definitely not something you'd want to try on your first date.
Oh God, no.
No, but certainly something I think if you have the experience and you really know someone else's body, you've played with them for a while, it helps. Yeah, that was pretty intense, I have to say, and it also just looked beautiful with the sun and the colors too.
Oh, it looked amazing, but we're sitting there going, huh?
Yeah, and I do a lot edgier stuff than Dara does, so you can imagine her shock because I was shocked. So she's just flipping out.
I was on the floor. Hey, excuse me, Electro is edge play. Thank you. I do it with knives now too.
Yeah,
this one just stabs people with needles.
I make people bleed and I love it.
See, all of those things could be infinitely more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, I can think about staph infections. I can think about something goes wrong with the electricity and you kill someone. I mean, these things that you don't see as particularly whatever because you know what you're doing and you're doing it with people and you've set this up and you know what you're doing. It's not, but yeah, I don't think either of those things would be good to start with.
No, and I love that viewpoint because I had somebody say in a chat group they called spanking like basic standard.
Not if you do it wrong.
And it's like, not only could you hurt the person you're spanking, but if you're not putting your hand in the right position, it's going to hurt your hand.
Well, not only that, what if you miss?
Yep. All the above.
Hit the coccyx,
also, apparently pouring water on Rara's head is also edge play.
Yeah. You mess up my hair and we got problems.
Yeah, well, see.
I call those princess rules.
Princess rules. Okay. That's why you need the Venn diagram, the plan. Okay. If this comes out comes the knife. They'll learn. Never do that again.
So if you
So one doesn't like electricity and one doesn't like water and one likes electricity. I'm starting to see the connection.
Okay. Yeah. We are at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Very opposite of everything that we do.
Yeah. My point is if it doesn't hurt, I don't see the need to do it.
And I do
there's
not
a
like
guy.
pain.
There's a guy at McGill I met who's doing his PhD on how they've discovered a gene that it doesn't actually hurt. The reason people are masochists is they actually feel the pain differently than other people. It
Well, I
isn't the
think
same
that's the same
feeling.
thing with how people can get tattoos. People with ADHD have a different reaction to getting tattoos than people who are not neurodivergent.
Right.
ADHD people fucking fall asleep during tattoos.
Yeah.
I am going to need the name of that person who's working on that because I would love to have them on to talk
That would actually be
about that
awesome.
subject.
I'll try and find it because he's been going to kink events to collect saliva from people to prove his theory. So if you decide that you're a masochist or not, he just takes the samples and he's creating this database to see if okay, do the people that describe themselves as masochist have this gene more often than not? And apparently they do. Apparently they do. It's looking like he's found the
I'd be
he's found the
fascinated.
masochist gene. Apparently.
Holy shit. That's really cool. Wait, what about mental masochism? Because that's me. I don't think there's a gene for that. You just got to be nuts, right?
Probably.
I think we're all a little bit nuts.
A little nuts. Okay, really quick question. Would you
Body
ever
mind.
think about doing a documentary that involves littles? Because that is very controversial, even in the kink world.
Yeah. Well, the truth is, the last documentary cost a lot of money and time, and the biggest thing I learned is don't do another documentary without the entire budget in place before I start. So if somebody wants to give me the entire budget before I start, I'll do a documentary about paint drying. Because it's a much more expensive and time-consuming and difficult process than I had ever imagined. I naively, started it with some money and then, had to work and then, it was just a pain in the butt. So I think
Note
I
to
care
self.
less about the subject. I'd love to do one a little. So you got $1 million? Give me $1 million. We can start tomorrow.
We'll do a Kickstarter.
As soon as we win the lottery, right?
Sure, I'll finance it if I win the lottery. No problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it fascinates me. I remember going to very little events and, just sitting around the table and coloring. And it was actually quite peaceful sitting at the table and just everyone sitting there in their coloring book. And I was coloring too. And I was like, oh, this is really relaxing. Yes. I mean, they were initially like, who's this guy in black leather sitting at our table? This is a bit weird, but I wasn't asking them anything until they started asking me questions and, minded my own business and got along 10 minutes later. I'm having a good time, So I find it a fascinating world too, as long as you don't, as long as you come as a guest, not as a
What do you hope viewers are going to take away from the documentary, both those who have experience in BDSM and those who may not be as familiar with it?
My biggest hope is that they learn that it's okay to like what they like. And that the only thing they really need to learn is this sort of process of making sure that you have consent and that you play and that you take care of the people that you play with. That you finish that circle. That's the most important thing. Just taking that away. Take that away. It's not just, I grew up with, okay, long as she says yes, it's okay. But it's more than that. It's, are you, now we've done it. Are you still good with that? How was that? Let's check in with that person. I think that's the big thing that needs to be added, the aftercare. Needs to be added to the public discourse. Someone just saying yes might keep you out of jail, but it won't keep the relationship going, All
right. Well, I hope people will want to go and see this. I recommend people see this documentary because honestly, it is the most authentic and real one that I personally have seen to date.
We did an episode on kink.coms.
Yeah.
But that definitely wasn't as authentic, and it was mostly just about the porn, not real people.
So if people do want to hopefully go see this, how can they see this documentary?
Go to tOuchkink.com, not kink.com, tOuchkink.com. And sign up for the newsletter. Depending on what the best thing to do is get on the newsletter because it sends out to different areas. On September 10th, I have my first general release to the public, sort of a pre-release that I'm doing that I'm going to be hosting a virtual one. And then on October 10th, it'll be available for VOD and various platforms all over the world.
Very cool.
And we'll put that in the show notes so that people don't have to worry if they remembered that or not.
Yeah, but that's what, as I said before, the toughest thing for me is getting the word out without a huge advertising budget. And even if I had a huge advertising budget, there's really not that many places you can talk about this sort of stuff. People are just, it's just not mainstream enough. So it's trying to create as much grassroots promotion as possible. That's my goal. And go to tOuchKink.com and you can watch the trailer there and sign up for the newsletter to get information when the movie's available to you.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for reaching out to me so that I could find out about this documentary and watching it and coming on and talk to us about it. I think the more that we can get this kind of information out into the mainstream, maybe the less stigma any of us will have to deal with in being kinksters.
Let's try and raise some funds to do one about pricks and a little. That doesn't sound like something should be together.
Little pricks?
Little pricks.
I've seen some of you.
Maybe there should be two separate documentaries. Maybe there'll be 2 episodes of the series. I'd love to do more about this subject. It's just and that's my hope, is that this documentary will get out, and other broadcasters or other people will want to do this subject matter, because I it's definitely better to have the whole funding and the broadcaster set up before you start.
Good learning experience.
I'm not the only one, son. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. We just got time limits here for our episodes. Okay. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come talk to us about this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of our fun and educational content. New episodes drop every Friday.
If you love what we do and want to show support, there are several ways. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast. You can support our affiliates or help spread the word about our kinky podcast to your friends.
Don't forget to rate and review Pink Kink on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those 5-star reviews go a long way in boosting our podcast through the algorithm and reaching more listeners.
Sign up for our Pink Kink Institute classes. Shop at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique. Stay connected with us on social media. You'll find all the links on our link tree posted in the show notes.
Your support means the world to us. So until next time, stay pretty, stay safe,
and stay twisted.